Welcome to the Spotlight segment. This is a segment dedicated to interviews with developers or interesting happenings in the world of Android. And now for this week's episode, here's your Spotlight. Let's now move on to our second segment of the Spotlight. As we just concluded that segment of Describe Me, let's now talk about TalkBack 16.2 that just dropped. And if you have a Pixel phone, for example, or any Android phone, for example, if your area has happens to be those areas that it kind of gets pushed out to early, then you may have gotten that. Or if you're just the impatient one, of course, then you may be looking for the APK, like say on APK Mirror, something that I don't subscribe to. I'm the one that always say, just wait till it hits you. But so we're glad to see that TalkBack 16.2 is out. John, let's talk about TalkBack 16.2. There are some changes, right, that we need to talk about that really matter to us as blind people, and also mention some certain regressions that happen with this release. Can you talk about some of these, John?
Sure. So the main big features, I guess, are, I would say there's 4 of them. There's the new enhanced key map for keyboard users with a browse mode. And then there's a new describe text formatting feature. And then there is the long-awaited double tap with 2 fingers to use voice input on Gboard, like iOS users have had forever. And then something else that iOS users have had for a while is split tap. So now you can, when you're using Explore by Touch, you can just tap with a second finger to activate the item rather than lifting your finger and double tapping.
Let's talk about let's talk about the first item that you mentioned, John, and how important is this to us, guys? Do you find that to be very important? Karin, what's your take on it? I know you're a Joshua screen reader, but in general, though, when we talk about this, we're talking about blind people in general, so we're looking out for the benefit of all. What are your thoughts about the first implementation that John mentioned?
About the first implementation? You mean the description of the text formatting?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me tell you first that if I'm being a Jisho user doesn't mean that I don't care about TalkBack. This is actually not the case.
Yeah.
I do care about TalkBack, and I want it to be better and better. And I test all the new releases. And to be honest with you, yesterday I used TalkBack more than I used it maybe for the past months, actually, because I was testing a lot of stuff yesterday. So I was using TalkBack a lot yesterday. So regarding the text formatting, I think that they did a good job in implementing it. We don't have the feature so I know that you will be happy. We don't have this feature with Jisho. So you can say that this is one of the features that TalkBack has, but Jisho doesn't. Actually, it's I think the implementation is good. Well, I'll leave this for John to just explain how the feature works. But you can use you can set it to automatically describe the formatting for you whenever there are formatting in the text, the focus text, or you can let it work manually. So you can just focus a text and ask it to describe it from the main menu or by using a gesture. I think this is good. They didn't try to force us to use one way or another. I think that Google has started to realize that things should be optional, and I have noticed this, and this also is making the settings section bigger and bigger. So actually, it won't be like as huge as Joshua settings, but it's growing. So yeah, it's good that Google has started to realize that things should be optional and everything should be customizable, which is good.
So yeah, it is very customizable. I mean, like she mentioned, there's two ways of using it. There's having it announced automatically, and then there's manually triggering it either with a gesture from the TalkBack menu. And then for the automatic announcing, you can turn it on and off with the reading control. You can go into the settings and customize what is announced. So whether you want like bold, italic, font style, font size, color, whether you want the actual color said, whether you want the hexadecimal value for the color announced, you can customize all of that. You can customize whether you want it to announce it with just making a sound or announce it verbally. So I've actually decided on just what I have is it makes a sound so that I know there's some kind of formatting there, and it doesn't read it out automatically every time. And then if I hear that sound, I know that I can just manually bring up the TalkBack menu and ask it to describe the formatting to me if I want to know. So yeah, it's about as customizable as it could be.
I really find that useful. Say someone is a student, for example, you're reading some text and you want to find where the emphasis and things of that nature. It comes in very handy for students, and maybe you kind of trying to proofread your work and you want to find areas of emphasis. I think this comes in handy. Let's talk about that double tapping with two fingers to start and stop dictation, which needs a Gboard in order to work. John, this is a welcome feature for a lot of people who want this, because it's not often that easy for someone to find that voice input and tap on it, and then when you're done to either find it again and tap on it. I think this is a huge solution because it now eliminates the ability to do that, and most especially if you are not using a Pixel phone where you could just say stop, for example, to make it stop dictation. I see this as a huge win. But John, talk to us about this, because one could also assign that gesture, right? If you don't want to use the double tap, which may or may not conflict with maybe the starting and stopping of media playback.
Yeah, so a lot of iOS users have been asking for this for a long time, but a problem that you have, and you have it here too on iOS, is it doesn't always work perfectly. And I've even come across it with this already. In some situations or some apps or some edit fields, you'll double tap to start using voice dictation and it'll resume your media, which, depending on the situation you're in and the media you were previously playing, could lead to some embarrassment, right? So, so you do have the option, unlike in iOS, you do have the option to split them. So by default, it does both, but you can assign separate gestures. So you can assign a gesture to do voice input only, and then a gesture to control play and pause media only. So that if you're ever in a situation where a TalkBack, for whatever reason, does not recognize that you're in an edit field and Gboard is on screen, when you do the gesture to start voice input, instead of it playing your media, it'll just say Gboard not on screen. Now, it might not be right, but at least you'll know it's not going to work in that situation, and the media will not just start playing.
Talking about this double tapping with two fingers to stop and start dictation, there's something I noticed, and it's probably maybe only on the Pixel phones, for example, that when I double tap to stop, then TalkBack would automatically read what I just voice dictated, and or something to that effect, which I find very, very helpful, because I now don't have to go find the edit field to hear what I just dictated. So is that, John, do you know if it's just happening on a Pixel phone or if it happens also on the Samsung phone, because my Samsung device does not qualify for the 8.5 beta One UI 8.5. So I'm not sure if this is something only specific to the Pixel, or
Yeah,
most
it's not.
especially specific to the Gboard. If you have a Gboard on Samsung, for example, running One UI 8.5, if you'll be
Well,
experiencing the same.
yeah, so you need Gboard to use this feature at all, but yeah, it's not just a Pixel thing. It will announce what was currently dictated when you stop the dictation, and only what was currently dictated. So it's not going to read you the entire edit box. So if you already had text in the edit box and you just added something onto the end of it, as soon as you stop that dictation, it will read back just the portion of the text that you had just dictated. So I think it's really nice. You don't have to review your text so much.
And I want to add something to that, because yesterday I was playing with it. And so I have already dictated and stopped the voice dictation, but then I initiated the voice dictation again by double tapping, and I told it to remove a certain word, and it actually did. I almost fell off my chair, and I'm not sure if it could repeat that again or not.
Now
But
that
I
is a
found that
Pixel feature. That
yes,
that
that's
will
a
not work on any other phone, because that's one of the feature sets where, like, you can say send, you can say stop, you can say clear all. There's different voice commands you can use during voice typing on a Pixel that you just aren't going to get anywhere else. So that is Pixel exclusive.
okay. Just that makes sense, because I was, wow, this is absolutely wonderful, because I just told it remove this word or replace this word with that, and it did. So yeah, that's a Pixel feature. Let's talk about the other one, John and Karine and Sally. Let's talk about the split tapping. I don't use that, but I know a lot of people want that. So is this a game changer for us on Android, as it
I might
is now that
I
one
might
is able to
be
split
in
tap?
the minority here, but I love this feature. I love it, and not only has iOS had it forever, but even it's even been on Fire tablets. So like in Voice View on a Fire tablet, you could even do it there. But it's finally here, and I mean, it's just, for me, I'll tell you what I like most about it. It's not just that you can well, it's quicker for one thing, but the thing I like the most about it is when you want to hit something multiple times. So say, for example, you're listening to an audiobook and there's a skip forward 30 seconds button, and you want to skip forward 5 minutes. You'll have to double press that button 10 times to get 5 minutes, right? So if with split tap, all you have to do is explore the screen until your finger is on that button, and then with its separate finger, just tap 10 times. So you can do it so much faster. You don't have to like double tap and wait for something to happen, double tap, wait for something to happen over and over. You can just hit it and it'll do the thing as many times as you tap the screen, as fast as you want it to.
Exactly. This is making things easier, and this is also one of the things that people moving from iOS to Android were complaining. They were saying like, I want to click on something, but I can't, and they were not able to like tell us what's going on their mind. I mean, what they want to do and how they want to achieve it. I said, you can just double click on it, but they used to say in iOS, it's not like that. So now it's on Android. It's a good thing, in my opinion, though. I don't use
and
it,
let's
but
be honest.
I don't use it,
Yeah.
but it doesn't mean that everybody should be like me. So.
Yeah, it's a good option, because
Exactly.
if we're being honest, double tapping is not as reliable on Android as it is on iOS. Anybody coming over from iOS will tell you
Mhm.
why when I double tap, nothing's happening sometimes. Like,
I
it's
heard that
just not
many
as
times.
reliable.
I heard it many
Yeah,
times.
so at least they now have this option. If they don't even want to bother with the double tap ever, they don't have to.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, but here is a question. Does it work reliably, or is it like the split tap to type, which is not working as it should? At least, at least during my tests, it's always not working as it should.
So it does work as it should. I'll say this. I'll try to explain the keyboard problem quickly, if possible. So the problem with Gboard is that it gives you, when you're exploring the keyboard, it gives you leniency. Let's just call it that. So when your finger leaves a key, it doesn't actually change TalkBack's focus to the next key, even though you're on the next key. It waits till your finger actually gets to the center of the next key before it changes the focus to that key. So what used to be the problem with split tapping, and that was actually corrected in this build, is that if you slightly left a key, TalkBack would not announce that you've switched to keys, and the focus would still be on the key your finger's no longer touching. But when you would tap the screen, it would input where your finger was rather than where the TalkBack focus was. So they have changed it so that the it's always putting in where the TalkBack focus is. So it's still a little bit janky in that if you're in this situation, what will happen is it will input the right character, but the TalkBack focus will quickly shift to where your finger actually is, and you'll hear the key next to it. So although it will put in the correct characters, it might seem confusing if you are kind of like on that border between characters, because the TalkBack focus will change and you'll hear a different character other than what was put in the field. But
And
you
I
don't
think
have...
this probably, John, ties in with the focus delay, right? So I think this is probably in an attempt to kind of try to correct that a little bit to where the change is instantaneous or sort of reflected. But the generally speaking, as you guys were talking earlier, you and Sally, the solutions it brings to the tapping, I think it's a huge change. As for example, that example, John, that you gave about, say, you're reading a book and you want to skip X amount of times. I can see the usefulness of that, because once my
or if you're
finger
changing
is on
pages,
that,
if you're like in a tutorial or
exactly.
something and you want to go like through
Yeah,
the pages
so
much faster.
I never thought of that, and it totally makes sense to me. But like I said, the whole idea is to have another method of doing things other than just the one method. So the more methods we have, I think it is a win-win situation for all of us, for especially those that kind of would rather prefer to do things a certain way or utilizing that method. And like you said, using the example you gave, it totally makes sense to me. Like Sally, it's not something that I may be using, but I am glad to see this here, because now it adds to the number of things that we could use and be able to be more productive. You know, you hear that word all the time, productivity, and people talk about productivity all the time. And so if this makes one more productive, I'm all for it.
Yeah, and you don't have to use it all the time. You can just use it in the situations where it's better. Like the example I gave where I'm skipping through a media track. That's, I've similarly with the split tap to type. I never actually used split tap to type, but what I did use it on is when I want to delete characters. Like if I knew I wanted to delete 5 characters really fast, I would just put one finger on the delete key and tap 5 times with the other finger, rather than having to double tap 5 times. So it's similarly like you don't have to use it for everything, but there are situations where it might make things a little bit easier.
Now let's talk about the last one. Which one was it? I think I forgot. We've talked
The
about
keyboard. I think Corinne wants to talk about this. She absolutely loves this new keyboard feature. Corinne, tell us all about this.
Best implementation ever. Well, let me start with the fact that I'm really disappointed. I was hoping for something really big. Google, as usual, broke my hopes and broke my heart. So, well, actually, the feature itself is good. It's really great. Usual also doesn't have this feature, the single letter navigation. Like when you are in Chrome, for example, or I think it should work with other Chromium-based browsers. I'm not sure about other browsers like Firefox. I haven't tried it, to be honest, with Firefox. However, the feature allows you to just use a key to move between like a certain web controls like H for headings, K for links, V for visited links. all Windows users are familiar, I think, with this because it's available in JAWS, it's available in NVDA. Even in NVDA, they call it browse mode. It's the same as it is called in TalkBack. So I think in Mac also they have it. I don't know about Mac, but I think that it's also available on Mac. So the feature itself is great. There's nothing to say about it here. But the implementation of the way to move between on-screen elements, or for example, if you are in a web page and you want to move between the items of the web page, like you are reading an article, like the implementation with TalkBack is you have to use the action key, which is the Windows key, or John, is it the search key? Is it called search key with Chromebooks?
Yeah, Chrome OS uses a search key, and then
Yeah,
Mac
and-
uses a command key. Yeah, so depending on what type of keyboard you have connected, that's why they're just calling it the action key, because it's different on every keyboard.
Exactly, but the problem is that you can't change the action key. So for example, if for any reason you don't have any of the keys, you are not able to change the action key. This is the first thing. And the second thing, for example, usually the Windows key is not really close to the arrow keys. So if you want to move, for example, between the elements on the web page, like you are reading an article, so you have to use the action key with the arrow keys to move. I think with a right arrow and with the left arrow to move, or up and down, I don't remember. But anyway, you have to press the action key. This makes moving between the elements one-handed impossible with many keyboards. So this is the first issue.
Yeah, it's not like what you're used to. Like, for example, in NVDA, even narrator, you can just press up and down if you're in what narrator calls scan mode, or what NVDA calls browse mode. You could just go through items that way. For whatever reason, they've decided here that the up and down arrows should go by line when it's in browse mode, and the left and right arrows should go by character when it's in browse mode. So that's how it is. That's how they've decided it's going to be. Sorry, continue, Green. What was the other issue?
Well, actually, the other issue is that if you don't have, as I mentioned, the Windows key for any reason, okay, it's not working. So you can't use the arrow keys to move between the on-screen elements, and you can't you can't use any shortcut or most of the shortcuts, because most shortcuts will use the action key. And if you try to change the keyboard shortcuts in the enhanced key map, you won't be able to do so, because action key should be used whenever you want to input the shortcut. So it will tell you that, for example, if I try to use the arrow key, like if I want to press it without using the action key, it will tell me that this is not possible, because I should use the action key to be able to use it as a keyboard shortcut. So this makes using browse mode literally impossible if I'm using a keyboard that doesn't have the action key. And if you switch to default key map, which uses Alt key as the modifier key, I'm not sure if you can change it with the default key map, but if you change to default key map, you won't be able to use the browse mode. So you'll lose the single letter navigation, which is, I think, one of the best features added to the new TalkBack. I hope that they just improve things, and they decide to make like navigating the web page similar to how it is with Windows screen readers, so we can use the keyboard one-handed. And they should also implement the ability to change the modifier key, so we can use other keys as well.
Yeah, I mean, they do let you change the modifier key. I think you pointed this out in the standard or default, I think they call it the default key map, but not in this one for whatever reason. I mean, you can't, in the default key map, you can't make it anything, but you can at least, you do have a few options, so it would be nice if they gave you those options. I think, not defending them, well, maybe I am defending them. I think the reason they made it because they don't want to. They're trying not to interfere. It seems like they're trying not to interfere with like the default system navigation shortcuts and stuff. So again, it should be an option, and if it does interfere, it interferes. But at least let us try something different. So, but yeah, the thing I wanted to point out is, and hopefully they can fix this in the future as well. Something that bothers me is, well, they have a feature that lets you, and I think it's on by default. I could be wrong, but it's called Smart Browse Mode, and basically when you land on an edit field or leave an edit field, it will put you in and out of browse mode automatically, so you can start typing. But if you have this enabled, it is always on, even if you don't have a keyboard physically connected. So like if I'm just using TalkBack normally and I have this feature turned on, anytime I'm going in or out of an edit box, I hear the announcement, browse mode on, browse mode off, which I don't think affects the functionality of TalkBack without a keyboard, but it's annoying, if nothing else.
Since you mentioned this, I want to talk also about the smart browse mode. Do they call it smart browse mode, right?
Yeah, but is it?
It's not, just for one reason. Because actually, I'll give you one example. So if I'm moving between edit boxes to reach a certain edit box, so I reached the first edit box on the page. What will happen now is that the text box will be in focus. So browse mode will be turned off. So if I try to press E again, it will just start typing, which will break browse mode, or suspend it actually, which will suspend it. So this will make using browse mode in such situation slightly tedious, because I have to press the arrow key, or actually action with arrow key, to move away from the edit box, and then I have to press the E again, and then I should press again the action plus the arrow key to move away from the edit box. Because I tried using escape, for example, it didn't work. So I tried to use escape to exit the edit box, like we do sometimes with Windows screen readers. It didn't work. So this affects the workflow, and this affects the navigation. Like, for example, in Windows, or on Windows, you can just press enter or space, and this will signal that you want to start editing. So it will suspend browse mode. And then when you leave the edit box, it will resume it. But with TalkBack, this is not possible. And I hope that also they will implement this in the future versions.
Yeah, I agree. It almost makes having smart browse mode turned off easier, because you'd rather just manually turn it on and off as you need it, rather than having it every time you land in an edit box, turn itself off because you're still using it. And hopefully they will correct this in the future. I remember a similar issue when they first added actions, is when you were on a web page and you were going through a web page by controls. If it landed on a control that had actions, it would automatically switch your reading control to actions, and you couldn't just go through all the controls on the page. So they did resolve that eventually, and this seems like a very similar issue where they just need to say, if you're going by, edit boxes, don't do it. Don't turn it on for every edit box,
So I think that what we have, though, at least for the time being, is that one could use those single letter navigation and be able to move, which is something we've been wanting for quite a spell. So going back to what Karen was talking, maybe one-handed use, for example. So if it's a possibility to have, maybe say I want to reassign, say, my control key, for example, to use in combination with the up or down arrow keys or left and right arrow keys, that would be great. So like we said, it's a work in progress. At least we've gotten started somewhere, and we're not where we were yesterday. So hopefully some of these suggestions, after they look into it, and like you said, John, if there's no confliction between this and some other ones, maybe it could be something that they could implement. And as always, it's a customizable thing. One could choose to use that or not to use that, and that's the beauty of it all. And hopefully this gets looked into.
Yeah, because by default, you're still using the default key map. So you don't have to deal with any of this unless you want to. So everything they added is new that wasn't there before. So it is progress, but it can also get better.
Let's talk about some of the regressions. Any regressions here that we see? I know that it's been a little bit of a talk on, I think, either on our Telegram group or maybe it's on our email group that I don't remember. And John, it has to do with the, most especially the image thing, for example. And I'm looking at those of you using the 3-button navigational stuff, for example, where you're back, home, and recent keys, preceded by image or something to that effect. And I know it could be a little bit nerve-wracking for some. John, talk about this.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what exactly is going on here, whether it is a bug or they just decided to change how things work, but some buttons are not being announced as buttons, they're being announced as images. As you said, the navigation buttons are a perfect example. Instead of saying back button, it'll say back image, which makes you as the user think it's not something clickable, right? So if it's not a bug, it needs to be fixed. Well, it needs to be fixed either way, because I don't think we care whether a button is an image or not. I mean, buttons are images, we know this, but it's not something that matters to us. What matters to us is whether the item we can interact with it or not. And I think this is just confusing more than anything else. And I can't even place like what causes it to happen. Some buttons just say button, some buttons say image. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess once you get used to it, that image means button and you can click it, but if you don't know that, you're going to be very confused.
Yeah, and as you indicated, I think the confusion comes when certain buttons really say buttons, and then these other ones will say image in addition to button. So it's kind of confusing. Either all of it will say image button, or all of it has to say
and even
button.
the same button in different places will be announced differently. Like in the Gmail app, the Gemini button on the homepage of Gmail is called button, but then when you're in an email reading it and there's the Gemini button, it's called image.
Yeah. So see, that's what I'm saying. So let's have it. And like you said, though, these things really are images of some sort, but since we're customizing it to make sense to a blind person, for example, let's be consistent. And like we said earlier, it wasn't like this until this release. And so there's something there. Maybe somebody forgot something or someone touched something that shouldn't have been touched. For example, I always say, why touch stuff that is already working? If you're adding new things, stuff that's already working, let that be. I think this is why we have regressions, is because developers, programmers kind of touch something that shouldn't have been touched in the first place. So yeah, this can be confusing to us as blind people. So Google, if you're hearing us, either they all have to say image or they all have to say a button, but let's not confuse people with one saying image and then in another breath it says button. It doesn't make sense. But our pleading is we want the button, because the button makes more sense to us, doesn't it, guys?
Well, technically speaking, it's a button. Even if it has this shape that you see, it's a button. So if you ask, or if you set in the settings of TalkBack, control types, I don't know what it is called in TalkBack. Actually, the one that is for stating the control type or the type of the element that you are in. Speak element type. This means that it should tell you the actual element type, which is a button. So the more options technically, for example, in WhatsApp, which is now considered as image with TalkBack, even if it has the 3 dots shape, it's a button. So if you look at the type, it's a button. So for that reason, it's not what we prefer, what makes sense more. It's actually what is right, what's wrong. And actually to be right, to describe it right, it's a button.
So button it is. And for one thing, buttons really look cute. So let's keep it cute. Buttons, that's what we want to hear. Right, John? Sally?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I also wanted to point out a couple of fixes since we're talking about regressions here. They have improved a couple of things. I mentioned it earlier, but although it's still sometimes announces or seems to announce the wrong character when you're using split tap typing. What's happening is it is actually putting in the right character this time. And same thing with long press. This also used to happen with long presses. If you've ever long pressed the delete key and then it just puts in an L instead of deleting stuff, is because your fingers moved a little bit, but it hasn't announced the change. And then you end up long pressing the wrong key. That's also been fixed so that, it's long pressing the correct key and it's putting the correct character in when you're using split tap typing, which I know very few people even use. Yep. The other fix I noticed is that the pause and resume reading is now fixed, whereas before when you would, so it's to tap with, by default is to tap with 2 fingers. This would pause or resume speech. And the way it was supposed to work is that it would either pause or resume speech. But what was happening is if you had previously paused something and you went to pause something else, it would resume what was previously being read. Now it will always pause speech if TalkBack is currently talking, and it will only resume it if you have previously paused it and TalkBack is not currently talking. So that's an improvement. I should point out that this feature still only fully works with Google TTS. If you're using a third-party TTS engine, it will not resume from the current point you paused it. It will start the entire utterance from the beginning.
I forgot to talk about one groundbreaking feature, which is what do they call it? Fast input? What? Keyboard?
Announce keyboard keys faster, I think is what it's called.
Yeah, that's one, which works only, thanks God, with Google TTS. Actually, it does nothing. To be very honest, at least I think that you have the same opinion, John. During my tests, it didn't do anything except messing some things up. Like, for example, sometimes it decides not to speak or to announce the typed word, even though the announced typed words is on. So, but it doesn't happen all the time. Anyway, no improvement, at least during my testing. So it's better to keep it off. Anyway, it's off by default. But I really don't get what does it do in the first place.
Yeah, I don't understand it either. I didn't notice a difference. But like you said, it's off. So we recommend don't go messing with it. It's in the same page under advanced settings with the delay settings, I think. So focus delay settings are on that page. And this is also there. Doesn't seem to do much of anything. And it's off by default, thankfully.
Yeah, some of these things are things that need to be improved on. And, when we report these issues, then they get fixed. Maybe there'll be a little bit of a workaround, or they'll kind of deliberate on it and find a better solution to it. So I'm glad we're noticing these things and mentioning these things. And these are things we could report so that they get fixed, because the better they get, the better it is for us. So at least it's there, and since it's not working or not working as intended, then we need to let them know XYZ is not working as intended.